Hello, you're watching the latest edition of BanKable Insights. I'm Godfrey Mutizwa. Now, disruption and technology are two words that have become increasingly part of our daily lexicon, and they will be there in any discussion on the future of banking, which is what we are talking about today. The digital strategies and business models that will be needed to engage both banks and clients. My discussant for this conversation today is Kennedy Mubita, head of SC Ventures Africa, a business unit of Standard Chartered Bank. And Kennedy is sitting in Nairobi. Thanks for joining us, Kennedy. Looking specifically at Kenya before we look at the rest of the continent, I imagine the high digital adoption rate and vibrant fintech ecosystem must certainly give you a head start in terms of taking on this journey on the continent.
Indeed, Geoffrey. We set up our lab in Nairobi mainly because of the attraction that the local market has in adopting new technologies. And therefore, we found that this was the right place for us to commence our foray into the Africa continent, having a good, what you might call ground initial basis to develop technology on the continent, Kenya being one of the leading countries in that space.
And how has been that journey? Easy, difficult, medium?
I think it would not be good if it was easy. Otherwise, it would not have been a challenge. But I would say that the saying goes, if you can't do digital in Kenya, you probably won't be able to do it anywhere else. And so there is a healthy enabling environment in the country, and the appreciation of digital tools by the population makes it a fairly a good ground for us to be able to start our foray into the Africa continent.
Yeah, so 2.5 years it's been alive in Kenya, 1.5 years alive on the continent. I want to talk about the continental part and where you have been so far, where you have taken this digital strategy on the continent.
We have been able to engage the key parties or key players in the market to be able to start many of our initiatives. Currently on the continent, particularly and really in Kenya, we're looking at various digital applications in different industries. We're looking at the commerce sector for the SME sector, where we have already, as a bank, as you know, SC Ventures is part of Standard Chartered Bank, and we had our foray. We had started, we've been engaging SMEs and partnering with various sections of society and various industries to provide financial services in these areas. And so we have implemented some solutions in the SME sector. Some of them are not yet ready for publication, and some of them will be announced shortly before the end of the year. We have also looked at deployment of IoT in various sectors. We're looking at in the water sector as well as in the electrical sector. We are looking at agri-tech solutions across the country. We have some projects that are prototype level, and we've also started basically engaging the fintech community and in the insurtech sector, because a lot of these value chains, you will find that the development of insurance or using insurance as a protective measure for any failures has not been common, and there are some interesting insurtech solutions that we are looking at to explore.
Yeah, let's establish the groundwork here that's required for you to be able to get into a country. You talk about things like, for instance, a fintech ecosystem, and I'm wondering to what extent you have been able to find this on the continent and the requirements for it for you to be able to function seamlessly.
Yeah, well, first of all, there were some fintech associations that are available that were in the country that have already been operating. Particularly for ourselves, we've partnered with the Central Bank and the Monetary Authority of Singapore. So we basically led the first Africa Asia FinTech Festival, where we invited a lot of local and international fintechs to participate and to showcase some of the solutions they have around different financial problems or different industries that could be applied within the country. We had quite a good uptake from there, and some of the partners we're looking to partner with for creation of different ventures and different investments actually came out from that sector. We have kept our close engagement with the Central Bank. As you know, the Central Bank governor has actually been on the forefront of of supporting innovation and helping or helping facilitate adoption of new technologies in the financial services industry. And in particular in Kenya over the year, in the last year, they actually and have started incubating solutions whereby we can actually prototype problems and solutions with the central bank. So that enabling environment, as I earlier said, we've been able to leverage that to engage the fintech community. We also have within SC Ventures what we call the fintech bridge, where we invite fintechs to register, and we then solicit challenges and problems from the community and submit these project problems on the fintech bridge. And different fintechs, both locally and international, can propose solutions to these problems and challenges that we put up. And then we've engaged them effectively. Actually, across the SC Ventures group, the responses to the Africa problem statements have actually been quite the highest. And we've had more than 50 responses from different fintechs that we are currently exploring how to solve for those solutions, for those problems.
Yeah, it's crazy, Kennedy, that you're talking about these things. It sounds to me like they come from another part of the world. I mean, my everyday conversation is to do with perhaps interest rates, monetary policy, a little bit about fiscal policies and that kind of thing, and earnings. And yet here you are, you're talking about things that are driving everyday African commerce, and I'm learning about it. So I am thinking, what about the reaction that you are getting from the central banks that you are engaging in this conversation? I mean, you are innovating, you are asking questions in instances where perhaps these conversations have not been had before.
Yes, I mean, we actually look at RegTech, we call it RegTech, as a key challenge that needs to be resolved. Because a lot of the fintechs
RegTech, you said.
Yes, RegTech. You know, a lot of fintechs that are in this innovative space look at regulations and controls as a stoppage or as a hindrance to technology. Mm-hmm. But we believe that all central banks, in fact, most central banks are very well intentioned with regard to why they put regulations in place. Yeah. And so the RegTech solution is where you engage the central banks and understand why a regulation is in place. And then you try to you explore technology solutions to delivering that solution. For instance, one of the key challenges that most fintechs have and most technology developments have is the identification of the individuals that are participating in a financial ecosystem. And one of the regulations that says that you have to verify that the individual that's opening an account or trying to perform a financial transaction is the person that is the right person, and that person is alive well.
KYC.
So the usual solution for that was that you have to walk into a bank to verify that you actually exist. But currently, there are technologies that, for instance, can ensure that when you look at a screen, your temperature can be measured. So if you are a corpse, you would not be you would not have a temperature, or you would not be able to put a picture because it doesn't have a temperature. So if you apply some IoT type related solutions to a technology solution and present this to the central bank, then you can actually demonstrate that using facial recognition, for instance, as well as proof of life technology solutions, you can validate the existence of an individual without them walking into a branch. Yeah. And if you can walk that journey with the central bank, I'm sure they will be able to come to some middle ground as to how you can facilitate account opening, for instance.
Yeah, fascinating. And I am thinking here, maybe in the future when the robots have got ability to move from one place to the other, the rules could well change. But the central banks are one part of the ecosystem, right? Let's talk about the other parts that you required, whereas, of course, the companies that you need to transact with, the customers that you require. How has that been going, and to what extent are they ready? Or is this perhaps something that you still need to build and develop going into the future?
Actually, the term you used earlier, which is KYC, which is know your customer, I had tried to avoid it because sometimes people don't understand what that is, especially those who have not engaged in banking for some time, or they do not know that that's the process going on. Sure. But there are various data sources that are now digitized, and this is where the differentiator comes in with standard the standard banking processes. As I said earlier, normally before you identify somebody or you know who you're dealing with and who carries that value, you would have to meet them face to face or confirm documentation physically by going to the relevant registration offices. For instance, in Kenya, there's IPRS now, where the identity of participants in the financial sector is now digitized. Even the tax system is now digitized, and port records are being digitized. So we're looking at all these areas where the government has enabled some level of digitization and continues to do that. And having API access to these data sources enables you, first of all, to validate what a transaction is. Other data sources in the commercial industry or in payment gateways can also give you data regarding the standard, regarding the activities of an entity. And you can validate whether that transaction is within the profile of that particular customer. And this can be done within milliseconds. This used to be done, used to take a long time. So the enablement, the digitalization of various data points, data sources, enables a level of open banking. And if you overlay that with probably blockchain technology, where then the owners of that data can make it portable.
Yeah.
And you can then use the data that you have had in one area or in one industry, say in an import sector, you can expose it to a bank, and then the bank can use that and rely on that to provide financial services, and that also can be done digitally. So it's not only the government that allows us to access data or work with us, but different industries are turning to digitization, and the more they digitize, the easier it is now absorb that information and utilize it to pursue or achieve a financial goal.
Yeah. In the world of technology transformation, of course, my next question is an old question. The readiness of these other partners that you require to be part of the ecosystem that you're having to build as you go along in the development of these things.
Yes, the readiness, we believe that it's a journey, it's a cooperative journey with the different partners. Currently, we are looking, for instance, at counties within Kenya, and the counties have seen that where data is in a digitized form, people can access credit quickly, and we're looking at things like Fuliza or M-Pesa, digital lending, algorithmic lending that's being facilitated by many mobile network companies, particularly the leading, and that, of course, is Safaricom. Now, those the various sectors of the economy are beginning to realize that they need that data digitized, and they need to put their counties on, or the participants in their economies, they need to give them they need to digitalize that database so that they can then participate effectively and can be visible by financial services providers. So we're seeing that recognition increasing. In the area of IoT, we're working with some counties right now to digitize their water supply systems and to improve the non-revenue water. That is where water is dispensed, but they do not know where the water goes, and they do not know where there are leakages in the system. So they're beginning to see that if they digitize that. So as in fact, alluding to your first question, where you said, why did we start in a country like Kenya? And I would say that because of that recognition of digital capabilities and facilitation to achieve SDG goals, we are actually finding many willing partners in different industries that are willing to explore and workshop with us.
Yeah. So with COVID-19, of course, what we have found is, there are new words that are coming into everyday usage. And one of those new words, I spoke about technology the other time, one of the new words is pivot. You're having to change the way you've been doing things before and find another way to become relevant. Banks in the past were institutions where you went and you got a solution from the bank. But you are now having to change and find ways in which you work with fintechs. And I find it fascinating. For instance, here in South Africa today, we had the Chief Financial Officer of Nedbank Group one of the big four banks, going to Vodacom. And you are having to find new alliances and do new ways of doing things. And my next question really is around the work that you are doing now with fintechs. You are now working together as opposed to one coming as a customer. How is this working and how did that relationship develop?
The two challenges that fintechs have is that as you move into the financial space, finance is a very regulated area. As you know, banks are the medium through which value is exchanged and value is stored. And wherever value is, the various factors, people with malintentions trying to access those systems. What the banks bring, where we sit in the sweet spot, I believe we're sitting in that sweet spot where we know what regulation is, we know we are not fearful of regulators because we've been partners with the regulators for some time. Indeed, our clearing systems and our FX systems are heavily linked to what the regulator does. Unfortunately, that has also the banking industry was also then clogged in terms of having to not being able to innovate and not being able to look at transactions in a different way from the traditional sense. Fintechs come unencumbered by that knowledge, and so they're basically very free thinking and looking at the quick ways of achieving a financial goal or performing a financial transaction. I think the marriage of those two capabilities creates an entity that is forward-looking, adaptable, being able to use technology to solve societal goals, while at the same time being conscious of the custodial nature of banking, in the sense that you're holding people's value and you're executing their financial transactions that enable them to perform commerce activities. And so we have engaged several fintechs. Some of them already. We used to do that before, but normally as vendors. But now we're looking at fintechs as business partners that enable us increase our catchment. For instance, if I have to go back to the point I mentioned on KYC, it was almost impossible to validate a grandmother sitting in the northern part of Kenya, who has never seen a bank and probably doesn't want to see a bank. So it's now the capability for us to do that enables us to fintechs that already have entered that space. The fintechs that have already entered that space can assist banks provide services to such people. And also people think of fintech as normally with small startups. There are large entities that are engaged in financial technology and that are providing solutions in that area and that banks are partnering with wherever they can bring people together to exchange value.
Yeah.
So we are.
Yeah. Sorry. Go and finish your thought.
Yeah, the thought was that we have a lot of partnerships now to provide various services along the various fintech categories.
Yeah, I want to know how that relationship has been, because as you say, these guys are coming from an environment where regulation has not been a key part of their existence. And I mean, some people would go so far as to suggest that they have been a little cavalier, if you like, with people's information, and yet we know banks are conservative institutions and come from a very different background. I'm imagining when you started working together, there must have been some kind of culture shock, and I'm hoping that perhaps this has been improving over time, or it has not. How has it been?
No, the good news is that it has been improving. Part of the improvement comes from some fintechs getting burnt. I'm sure you heard of a recent fintech that was worldly renowned and discovered that they didn't have $2 billion in their account, which they claimed to have. So those kind of examples, unfortunately, we make lemonade out of them in terms of it is bad that happened. But now when you bring up issues of control, you bring up issues of cybersecurity, then it's much more understandable. I've got good examples of fintechs that sort of started and crashed and burned. And so the discussions are much easier now, and the value that traditional banks bring to the discussion is now being recognized, that they're not just dinosaurs, but they have some maturity, which of course is old-fashioned, but can be adapted, and there are quite a few adaptable banks. So I think the future belongs to banks that are adaptable, that I would like to mention various, of course, with Standard Chartered being able to launch SC Ventures as a unit, are banks that recognize that value, but then also recognizing that all the expertise is not within the bank and we have to engage external parties. Once that is understood by both parties, it's much easier to chart a way forward.
Yeah. In part, you've answered my next question, how you are working together with the fintechs and some of your clients to come up with solutions. I want to talk about co-creating it. That's what you are calling it. I want to understand what it entails and who is able to get into that kind of relationship with you where you are able to co-create.
Yeah, well, we have co-created with large entities, global entities, global multinationals. We have created, for instance, one transaction that we have now a digital-only bank in Hong Kong, which is basically been co-created with Standard Chartered Bank and an external MNOs that are global. We are looking at partnering with some of the transactions that we're exploring are still in the confidential space, but these are large global multinationals. We have also partnered with small entities. We have partnered with entities that were really very much in the startup phase and had a particular solution, for instance, in the areas of information security and AML and compliance. We partnered with an entity, I think that Silent 8, with that we have actually announced to the world. Sure. So we've done that. We've also cooperated with entities in the digital space. We are investors in RippleNet, for instance, and are very much present on that. So we have some foray into that blockchain and DLT-based space. So we look at fintech not as startups, but really as people who are any entity that has a digital mindset and is ready to explore and venture into new areas and new deployments of technology.
I'm not too sure what the situation is in Kenya, but here in South Africa, there's always this conversation about the mismatch between the education system and the requirements of business. Always the complaint has been, you are producing stuff that we cannot use. You need to do X. How difficult has it been on that front within the banking space with fintech coming on board?
No, in that area, I think you're actually on the money. There is a shortage. There's a skills shortage in terms of digital acuity in Africa and in a sense globally. But in Africa, and basically you see that in the cost of getting qualified people that can translate your digital vision into actuality is quite high. In fact, in the digital space, in the technology space, we're still looking at hiring, even in this COVID season. And in fact, this environment has actually caused the need for digitally savvy and digitally literate people to be engaged. But I've seen there are a lot of schools and a lot of training colleges that are providing training in this space. And I think we continue to see some improvement as newer candidates, newer students do so. But this is normally at the tertiary level. I think at the basic level, Africa still needs to reorientate the teaching and the training and the curriculum to prepare kids for the future. And I do, when I compare this across the world, I've seen some programs abroad, I see that we will be lagging behind if we do not really put more resources into the training and preparing the nursery of engineers and programmers and DevOps specialists right from an early age. That's an area that needs a lot of by government.
Now, you guys are able to see these things in ways that we as customers are unable to see. So I wanted to know from you, if you could just very quickly, in a minute or so, paint a picture for me of all these things we've been talking about and how potentially they will look for a potential customer as they walk into your branch or they pick up their phone or a smartphone and try to conduct business with you.
Yeah, the current literature on the future of banking is where the customer owns his data, owns her data, and is able to use that data to obtain any service that they want. And as you know, one of the motivations for blockchain, was that people should be able to have value portable. So you can carry your own value and exchange it at the time that you want to exchange it. And issues of open banking have also been discussed in terms of, how do you make sure that your data that you have can be carried. So if you had a good credit, for instance, and you were living in the USA, why can't you carry that data with you and then present it to somebody here in Kenya and say, this is my data, this is my financial history, and therefore I'm entitled to a mortgage at a good rate because I'm a good payer. Those kind of, and that's the academic the academic research is continuing in that space in terms of how do we leverage that, how do we make data portable, how do we commoditize a lot of the things that used to be done at normally by the favor of the bank.
Yeah.
But definitely what's happening now is that data is becoming more the real value, and data is a real asset, and who owns that data and who controls that data has creates value. And you see this reflected in the stock markets in terms of which companies are doing well. It's those companies that are generating data, and data which can be translated, and data which can be analyzed to customize provision of services to individuals, to companies, to countries, and that can then be used as a basis of making investment.
Absolutely.
So how portable that will be is really, I think, directionally I can point at, but of course research continues. With the coming of 5G, the preponderance of data and its applicability is going to go through the roof, and people, there are various theories as to what will happen with 5G. Can passwords exist in a 5G world, or can computers with brute force break any password? And so, look at it from a positive perspective. Data is the new asset that needs to be controlled, and him who has that data will be able to accrue value to himself or to the ventures and projects that they're in. Standard banking products will be commoditized, and you can possibly go and buy a loan that's suitable for you based on your data. You can go into a shop, and your credit worthiness can be analyzed, and your capacity to pay. So the future of the bank is the network of data connected to value.
Absolutely. Kennedy, we have to leave it there, but I have to say we are also co-creating, because there you are helping us create content, and at the same time we are helping you reach your customers and potential customers. For today, thanks for joining us. Kennedy Mubita is head of SC Ventures Africa, a business unit of Standard Chartered, and we continue getting educated every single day. I am taking this one with me. Have value portable value. Wherever you are in the world, you have got value. That's the program for today. Thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.